What's going on, everybody? B-Sun again with another episode of What I Know. And for this one, we'll be talking generally about DJ's neutral. DJ, in general, is a bit of an awkward character. He makes a lot of sense up here, but in this range, it can be kind of hard to know what to do, at least in my experience. And it took me a long time to find something that feels kind of comfy and feels like it's relatively consistent. You know, given that you get reactions and stuff like that down. Though it is extremely matchup dependent. So, I don't know if anyone here has played any other fighting games besides Street Fighter. I come from Tekken, and in my opinion, Street Fighter compared to Tekken when it comes to neutral or footsies is a lot more matchup dependent, unless you're someone like Guile, right? Than it feels when it comes to something like Tekken. Unless you're playing another extreme character in Tekken, like Gigas or Bears, although Gigas is dead right now. So, that being the case, generally speaking, in the starter kit video, I also mentioned some of DJ's preferred neutral tools. And I'll just go over them briefly right here. So you have medium kick, I believe, best DJ poke tool. Crouching medium kick comes next. Medium sobat comes next. Heavy kick comes next. Forward medium kick comes next. Crouching heavy comes next. Okay? And they all have their own little use cases. Generally speaking, your preferred poke tool and in this spacing is just medium kick, okay? And this will also change depending on who you're fighting against, but you're almost always going to want to represent medium kick. 9 frames, really far reaching, and can occasionally on counter hit link into level 1, right? That being the case, neutral for DJ isn't one in which you're consistently active all the time, unless you want to play that way. And if you want to play that way, that's fine. I just feel like that's a very volatile way to play. Drive rush jab is very important to his kit and his pressure in general in neutral, because it keeps them, you know, on their toes and makes them hesitant to do anything like overtly slow to try to check you doing stuff. So, and you know, it also like makes them shift their mental stack around. But if someone like JP in general is just gonna be walking around doing stuff like this, then you'll randomly drive rush into a poke and then get counter hit converted a lot of the time, if you're not being at least selective with where you drive rush in, right? And in my opinion, the way that where this comes from in general, in terms of besides just basic like knowledge around neutral, is how you represent your pokes first. Okay. So we start with medium kick. Long range, 9 frames, recovers relatively fast, so you can whiff it. And even on block, it's a very neutral situation. So stuff like medium kick and medium kick can catch a lot of people. Medium kick and medium sobat. This is a classic DJ strat. Don't do it unless you have a read. Please don't start off with this into this. You're gonna die. Like someone doing either a jump or a DI or just a regular delayed poke. You'll get counter hit. It's not bad, but it's not great. Although sometimes maybe like a tip range right there could work out for you. But this, giving someone this to think about and where they go from there is super important for DJ, because when you represent this, it's a very annoying poke and it has long range. And if they want to stand out of it, or at least walk into range of it, they're going to play around here, right? And playing around here is where, oh, there's another is where knee shot comes into play. Because if you're closer than that when you do knee shot, and someone happens to walk forward at the same time, there's a large chance it'll just straight go over them while you do it. And with how the recovery frames work for knee shot and the fact that it doesn't hit cross up and has a very expanded hurt box, it could just lead to you dying very often if you misspace this. You know? Even if they do something simple, like walk forward crouching medium punch, or walk forward crouch button, which is very common in this game, it'll still whiff them, especially if it's a move that moves them forward. Right? So instead, we do stuff like this. Or stuff like this, you know? And the goal is, generally, when you get to spacings like this, is to figure out what they want to do after they block medium kick. Because the pushback as well on this move is pretty considerable, which puts you at the perfect space to back heavy kick if they jump immediately, right? And you can even do little spacing traps or timing trap things where you do this into light kick. And even if they jump right away, you'll be able to anti-air a lot of the time. If you're quick. If you're quick. Or you can use crouching medium or crouching light punch as well. Or just back up, react. Okay? And if someone starts swinging after this, you're almost always in range to punish them. The big point, though, is to not be scared of staying here. Because this is where you're going to build a lot of what you're doing in neutral. If you become afraid and a little gun-shy, it doesn't allow you to whiff punish consistently. Take this situation, for example. If you're walking back, right, versus staying still, that is almost always the difference in this game when it comes to whiff punishing something. Okay, so you have to believe in yourself to occupy this space, to poke in this space, because it's what's going to enable you to just open a lot of other things up, right? The hard part for DJ Neutral is that his movement speed is so slow. I believe he's almost one-to-one in line with Guile. So a lot of the times, and it shifts around, this is what I mentioned earlier about matchup specific stuff, that what you want to do as DJ, whether it's you want to move and maintain this space, you know, people are walking around, and you don't want to randomly, you know, get too close. Just trying to maintain. If you're trying to maintain this spacing, this little gameplay right here, this is much harder to do against faster characters, right? Akuma, Chun-Li, Cammy, even Shotos in general, Ken, Luke, Jury. Not that Jury's a Shoto, just saying, like, I'm just extending. Because their walk speed is so considerably fast and their low forwards or crouching medium kicks tend to be far enough for you to have to, instead of walking back to create a whiff, you either need to just stand your ground or counter poke, right? And this is going to make a big difference in general, because sometimes as DJ, you just have to commit. And this is one of those cases, right? Because if you move back, you're often not fast enough to get out of low forward range, which is where sway starts coming into play, right? And take it from someone who's gone through this struggle and is still going through this struggle. I get clipped so often trying to backwalk crouching medium kick drive rush. It is the bane of my existence as this character. So please just try to mess with just staying here, committing to a counter poke, right? Or sway. Unless you're playing against certain other characters, like Zangief, like JP, Honda, Aki, Blanca, Marissa, Kimberly, and Guile. Those characters that I just listed, and Lily as well. Those characters that I just listed, you can safely backwalk away from and not risk your life bar plus tax, right? Oki situations, etc. DJ does have the same backwalk as most of the cast. Yes, but he does not have the same forward walk. And that's important because people can, or most of the cast can close that distance and then represent a special cancelable normal much quicker than DJ can. On top of DJ not having special cancelable normals, long range special cancel normals himself. Man, that was a mouthful. Anyway. And I know so far I've only talked about medium kick. But if you want to learn DJ neutral in earnest, in my opinion, start with medium kick and start with standing your ground, right? Being okay and comfortable in this spacing, being able to anti-air in this spacing, repping this and building off of what they do after that, and knowing when to walk around to space things out versus just standing still or counter poking. Look for those situations. It'll mean a lot. Putting that past us, we have crouching medium kick. This is just important to stop people from moving around. And this is not something that you necessarily poke with in the neutral. Again, because of DJ's poor forward walk speed. You can sort of check people with it though. And that's not neutral per se, but it's part of neutral. So what do I mean by this? Characters that have some long range poke, you know, the classic Shoto heavy punch, or Ken medium kick, right? Or Ryu medium kick. This is just to prevent them from being able to do whatever the hell they want, right? Because a lot of characters, again, or a lot of people in general, are not scared to backwalk against DJ, right? So you have to rep crouching medium kick. And this is when it's actually useful, in my opinion, is not to walk around and like wait for people to walk into your range and do this. That's where medium kick comes into play. Though that kind of, again, all of this changes depending on matchup. Like Zangief, for example, crouching medium kick is much more useful in neutral against him. Although it's a bit of a read. But yeah, this is mostly meant to, let's say your opponent did something, at least for my usage of it. Your opponent did something in neutral and they're here-ish, and you just want to stop them from, you know, walking around freely, right? And even if they jump after something like this, or let's say like you're late, you'll still recover in time, and you'll already have charge as well to heavy up kicks. You know? So that's crouching medium kick. Again, mostly, in my opinion, used as a counter poke or as just a tool to check to make sure that someone is not moving around, right? And the reason why we go over that, besides, let's say, heavy kick or crouching heavy punch or medium kick or even medium sobat, right? purely just because it's a low and it goes far. And crouching medium kick is indeed farther reaching than crouching heavy punch, right? Not yet trusting, because I don't use DJ's fireball as a poke. I don't think his fireball is good as a poke. But we'll go over that in just a second. So, crouching heavy punch is a similar poke to crouching medium kick, in my opinion. Although it's more of a like forward walk check, or like a micro walk check, or delayed button defensive maneuver. So let's say you do standing medium kick, right? And your opponent has the tendency to drive rush forward, to do walk forward button, right? In that case, that's very helpful, right? As well as being relatively rewarding as well, right? It can be a little dicey on the confirm or the conversion into heavy up kicks, just depending on how far they walk forward and all that kind of thing. But I will say that if you are ever doubting whether or not heavy up kicks is going to hit, OD up kicks almost always connects. I think there might be just a little range where it won't. Yeah, there we go. But there you have it. Now, so a lot of people think, again, I gotta clear up this misunderstanding. The nerf to heavy up kicks is not a combo nerf. The nerf to heavy up kicks is only outside of the heavy up kicks range nerf is only outside of combos. In combos, it maintains its range. They didn't nerf that specifically. If you read the patch notes, you'll see what I'm talking about. Also, how's it going, Rubes? Moving on. So we have medium kick, crouching heavy punch. And now we start feeding in things like medium sobat. So the way we want to approach medium sobat, again, is something I mentioned in the starter kit video, is similar to how a Shoto character uses heavy fireball. And the reason why this is because it has a similar effective range as heavy fireball, and is also the same speed, and can also trade with fireballs in general. And it's also one of your more rewarding Loki situations. Though if you do hit it tip range, you can't raw drive rush up and be in range to throw or do a meaty throw. So in that case, you still have to dash drive rush in or do something like this, right? So keep that in mind. The Oki situation off of conversion is way different compared to like a tip range medium sobat conversion. And this is mostly used to make your opponent not feel comfortable moving around at this space, especially if they know the range of medium kick, because this goes dummy far, right? Though it is extremely high committal, much like a heavy fireball, so please use it sparingly. Even in the cases where you do it and the opponent also happens to do something, unless it's not uncommon for your opponent to do something like a drive rush drab and you just get counter hit out of the medium sobat and you're getting comboed. So yeah, Jesus, it's a nerf against block punishes, which is unfortunate because I really like that block punish. So what else is medium sobat good for? It's also good when you're in burnout and you have level 3, because although it can be tough, it is hit confirmable. So if you're in burnout and you have a feeling that your opponent is gonna DI from this range, that into medium sobat can be good, or into level 3 can be good. Just be aware that at tip range into level 3, it can also just drop. So that's a bit range dependent. But, so let's move on from medium sobat, because that about does it. And let's move on to heavy kick. So why would you want to use heavy kick? Well, if you look at the drive gauge, that's about a third. It's about half, right? That's more than half. That's a grip, actually. So this is really good because it's sort of a shorter version, but a more mobile version of medium sobat. Because even if you want to walk forward and you're playing on a leverless controller like I am, even the fastest like quarter circle forward that I can do is about, 3, 5, 6 frames plus 12, 18 frame moving poke, right? And that's being generous, So being able to walk forward and just press heavy kick, it's a lot more mobile because you can just do it. And it does do a lot of drive gauge damage. So when you want to swap into the mode of damaging your opponent's drive gauge, heavy kick is very useful. But again, also super committal, as well as just having, pretty bad like extended hurt box and dies to DI and jump ins and all the usual stuff. Yeah, trusting, I know. That's why I mentioned it specifically in the regard of DI. So, again, mostly for drive gauge pressure, and if you just want a mobile long range poke. Though I will say, this is your preferred whiff punish tool in general. So there is a spacing in which DJ can occupy where crouching heavy punch will punish extended limbs. Although it's not uncommon for you to be out of range for a genuine conversion, and then you only get something like this into medium sobat, or this into level 2, right? But at least with heavy kick, you can always get a conversion, even if you're burned out, right? This, all for a single bar, is pretty good, though it is 12 frames, and you have to be very on point with your whiff punishing to make that work out for you well. But you'll often find that against certain characters, heavy kick is your most consistent whiff punish, even if it's also your slowest, which is extremely unfortunate. Though this folds nicely into my next point about DJ neutral, which is you have to be very clear and committed to which whiff punish tool you end up using as DJ. The reason why I say this is because a lot of medium buttons, when whiffed, a lot of crouching medium punch buttons, or medium punch buttons in general, when whiffed, stay far back, as well as have a fairly short recovery time, right? So in the instance of here, right, if I'm playing against a JP, for example, and he's swinging heavy punch, I can occupy this space and whiff punish reliably with heavy kick. Although I have to be very fast, right? But if he's playing safer and doing crouching medium punch, it's much harder to whiff punish this because it only has 14 recovery frames. And this is a bit of a challenge, right? Because it's so fast, and this is not really a whiff punish in terms of like you're assuming that it's gonna whiff, a wish punish, right? Though the wish punish with a crouching heavy punch is much safer than wish punishing with standing heavy kick, right? Although this isn't a great example because I'm getting bodied every time. But if you're playing against someone who whiffs a button into whiffing another button, and you're trying to use heavy kick, you're gonna get demolished. Yeah? And while heavy kick has the most range, it being slow is something you want to consider. Not versus JP. Yeah. Against JP, he has that special privilege of being able to whiff into whiff. As well as Season 1 Luke. But at this range, because crouching heavy punch is quicker, if you kind of twitch react to an animation, crouching heavy punch is a lot more consistent in getting that whiff punish than heavy kick is. You know, especially if you're just looking for like a twitch in the animation, you can even whiff punish, you know, whiff punish lights, right? So keep that in mind. Try to, when you're playing a neutral and you're looking for the whiff, although I will say whiff punishing as Deejay is probably a smaller part of his core gameplay. It's not something that you're trying to win a game off of, right? You're not trying to win the game with whiff punishing as Deejay or creating whiffs with Deejay. He's just not that kind of character. Though this is an important aspect of him for like getting that one opening to start steamrolling people. So if you are looking for the whiff punish, stand around here, right? Be very clear, this spacing for Deejay is way different to this spacing as Deejay. And also honorable mention to medium kick as a whiff punish. Just because it's 9 frames and considerably longer than Deejay crouching heavy punch. So if you're playing against a character like Zangief who's running around doing medium punch, it's a much more consistent idea to whiff punish with a medium kick rather than, you know, crouching heavy punch. And crouching medium kick is also a decent whiff punish tool as well because on punish counter they can't back tech, so there's that aspect of it. Though, again, it's all dependent on what you're looking for and what you value. Am I going to bring up level 1 for whiff punishing? Hell no. Yeah, so to what X is saying in the chat, another use of Deejay medium sobat is as a counter poke, right? Let's say your opponent is a JP kind of character, and he's doing heavy punch into heavy punch. Which is, or heavy punch into crouching medium punch. Or just doing crouching medium, right? Even if you don't get the, like, the whiff punish, you can still check somebody, right? You know, the term for this that I have is called whiff pressure. So if someone whiffs a button, even if you press your own button in response, not to simply whiff punish them, but just to make sure they don't do something dumb right after that, this is medium sobat's very helpful in that situation, right? Heavy kick as well, honestly. Sending medium punch. I haven't tested that myself, Jesus. Although I have experimented with hit confirming like the target combo. Though it's not something I often prefer. So, we went all this time without talking about Deejay's Fireball. Now, why am I not talking about Deejay's Fireball when it comes to neutral and saving it for last? Well, because his Fireball often gets you into more trouble than it's worth. And in my opinion, it's not great as a poke in neutral. It's for reads or for stalling out the game, right? So, if you look at Deejay's Fireball, what's unique about it besides only having one speed, and the only difference between medium and heavy fireball is the double or the single in terms of speed. It's special in the sense that it recovers very quickly compared to other fireballs, right? Considerably quick, maybe not very quick. It's not Guile, Sonic Loop. Though, if you look at the startup frames, this is 17 frames. 17 frames. You want to poke with a 17 frame fireball in a game with Drive Rush against characters like Blanca and Ken and Akuma, I highly suggest you reconsider. Highly suggest you reconsider. Okay? As well as Heavy Slash also being 17 frames, but a total 60 frames, a whole second. Something you can kind of react, jump from this far out, right? This is why you don't really treat DJ Fireball as a poke. You can sort of use it as a way of forcing certain interactions or your opponent to change what they're doing in neutral, because up at this pace or this spacing, they can't react to Fireball, right? And up here is where you would want to use something like Heavy Slash or Full Screen. So again, like I mentioned, if you're at, you know, round start spacing ish, right, and you throw Heavy Fireball, it's kind of reactable, so they can jump in on you for free and get a big old punish. And even at this range, characters, you know, Drive Rush medium buttons or Drive Rush heavy buttons can still clip you. So if you happen to do that and you trade unfavorably, it's not good. Compared to if I do like a 12 frame move at the same time, at least I'll trade. You know what I mean? This is why you don't poke with his fireball per se. And which is also why I mentioned this being DJ's preferred spacing. Because if you're here, it's much harder to react to his Heavy Slash or his fireballs in general. And even if they perfect parry this, they have to double perfect parry the Heavy Fireball in order to, you know, get some kind of pressure or perfect parry Drive Rush in, you know what I mean? Or forward jump. So at this spacing, and if you watch, Knuckle Dew is great at doing this too. He finds spaces to use Heavy Fireball really well, and it can be quite annoying to deal with just because of how much it slows the game down. And on that note, unless you have a read or unless you're full screen, right, doing the things I said for Heavy Fireball, normally you want to keep with medium Fireball because they cannot react to this. Because if they're reacting, and besides, you know, if they're not doing a read, you know, if they're reacting to the Fireball, you will recover every time to punish or to heavy up kicks. And that's generally what happens. Because people need at least 19-ish frames on average to consistently react to something. And in 19-ish frames, you're definitely, you know, you're definitely going to recover in time, right? 19 frames is your recovery, actually. Sometimes with this move, you know? So that being the case, they still have another 15 frames to go before they actually hit the ground and can make contact with you, right? Even with like the most egregious jump buttons. In which case, you have heavy up kicks, and you're going to anti-air them. right? So you can still use medium slash at this range and, you know, far as well. And there are some cases where you do want to use medium slash from this range, because if they forward jump react to medium slash, you can do stuff like that, right? Or, hold on. Right? I should probably make a video on how to do DJ level 2 as well. But it has its uses, you know, in different ranges. Though in terms of using it in general, medium slash is best used just to stall stuff out. Let's say you're playing against a guile. And this is most expertly, in my opinion, portrayed against a guile player. So if you notice against guiles, the reason they don't like the DJ matchup is DJ can force OD booms out of guile, right? You'll notice once a guile starts getting going, this kind of stuff, right? They don't want to hold that. So what often happens is they'll do an OD boom at some point, which will get you every time, right? So in which case, let me see if I can set this up. A lot of the times, when you're in a fireball war against a guile and you make them do OD boom because your double heavy slash got through to him, what they'll end up doing is an OD boom to just kind of maintain neutral. And unless you're, you know, full screen when you do this, you're gonna get punished. So what you can do instead, and is also part of my game plan against guiles, is that heavy slash and then medium slash you'll recover in time, and now you're up a bar or 2 bars, right? So in cases like that, you want to use medium slash, especially if your opponent is liable to use an OD fireball in return to your own fireballs. In that way, you can leverage the fast recovery of DJ medium slash. And even if they choose not to use an OD fireball, and you know, you do medium slash, it's still a neutral situation, and they're not getting what they want, which is priority in neutral, right? Or plus frames in neutral. So even if you do something like this, and they respond with a regular fireball, you're good. It's just, you just reset the situation, right? And then they also have, it also has the nice thing about it being generally a fireball trap, or a fireball trap at this spacing. Oop, I missed the charge by frame, but you get the idea, right? So that is another way that you can use medium slash. So don't poke with his fireballs is the main point. DJ's fireballs have a place in his special cancels, but don't use his fireballs like you would a Shoto fireball, like you would Guile's fireball. It's just not set up for that. And it's something that you can't rely upon to, you know, like in the same way that you would approach other characters' regular-ish fireballs. The last thing I'll say, now that we're still on the topic of fireballs, as DJ, especially when you're standing at this range and you're kind of playing coy with your fireball, once you get the information on when your opponent does fireballs, it's very important to have jump, medium kick conversions on lock. Because this converts from very, very far, right? And most characters at this spacing are not afraid of a jump button. Or even at this spacing. Right? And being able to represent this at range makes them way less comfortable throwing fireballs. It's a very important thing that you need to do. And sometimes it just clips them for free because they see you jumping, right? A secondary response to DJ jumping or characters in general jumping in this range is for your opponent to forward jump themselves, right? Or like micro walk forward and forward jump. Or drive rush in. In which case, this just clips people, right? As well as, let's say you're jumping back from a pressure situation, and your opponent drive rushes in. This isn't a great example. It's kind of hard to set up on the fly like this. But if you jump back, you can clip people coming in. If I can make it just like a frame slower, right? Because if you do something like heavy punch or heavy kick, although heavy kick is actually pretty good at this itself. There you go. Cool. It's not uncommon for that to happen, and a lot of people tend to chase down back jumps with drive rush in this video game. So having medium kick on lock and reacting to that is pretty important. So the last tool I'll talk about is forward medium kick in neutral. And the reason why it's the last tool is because it's probably up there with heavy slash as a tool you want to be confident and you want to take some time to think about to use. Because like I said in the starter kit, it's 19 frames, actually 22 frames or 21 frames, depending on whether they're standing or crouching. And with that in mind, DJs get counter hit doing this shit all the time. All the time. This move is painfully slow. It has the benefit of being special cancelable as well as being hit confirmable into, or not special cancelable, super cancelable, as well as being hit confirmable. Although it is, again, on the hard-ish side. I think it's 17 frames, thereabout. But, I don't know why I didn't get my super there. But this is decent to use when you're in burnout and you don't have level 3, so you can't rinse that into level 3. Though it's risky, again, because it's just so freaking slow. And you might as well run around and do crouching medium punch. Because that's easier to hit confirm than his forward medium kick, right? Yeah, no, I know that, Jesus. I did that to Idom in bracket once. So, how do we use medium kick or forward medium kick in this as DJ? At least in a context that makes sense and will limit, you getting blown up. So the way I use this is when I have conditioned my opponent to be aggressive, right? If I'm in burnout or I have the life lead and I have, reason to move back and not do anything and I don't need to take a risk, this is when forward medium kick, in my opinion, is the best, right? The reason why is because if your opponent's moving forward, walking forward at you, trying to cover space, they are not looking to walk forward and press a button, right? Because you're walking back. And the way neutral works in this game for Street Fighter is if you walk into your range, your poke range, and you press a button, you are more than likely to be clipped by a counter poke. That was me resisting the urge to say there. Damn it. But anyway, that being the case, your opponent is more likely to walk forward and block, walk forward, walk back out, right? And in this case, when your opponent is walking forward and you're pretending to move back, this is when it's nice to move forward and forward medium kick. Look how far that reached, right? Experiment with it, try it out yourself. Find a way, or at least find the opponents that you can make them come to you, and then look for those spots where you can do forward medium kick, right? Trust me, it works like a charm. People are very rarely expecting you to go so far forward as DJ, because normally that's the way DJ players do this is by knee shot or drive rush, right? And this out of nowhere can be quite annoying for them to deal with. Ooh, and one more thing. Drive rush jab. I believe I mentioned it, but to kind of flesh it out a little more, it goes back to what I said DJ's like optimal spacing is. Drive rush jab is much more consistent at this spacing because this is when you are in range to go for a throw immediately, right? Which is why we prefer this range. If you're farther out and you try to rep something like this, you're gonna have to micro walk forward, which loses to people mashing on you, right? That doesn't mean you can't do, frame traps and stuff like that there, but against someone who knows their spacing well, they're just gonna walk back against you all the time, right? And the last thing you want to do if you're trying to initiate something is be forced to do a micro walk into crouching light kick into a chain confirm, or micro back walk and crouching medium kick, because it just pushes people out of the way or away from you. So you want to get to this spacing ideally. It's not always possible, but ideally in this spacing first before you start repping stuff like this, right? It also makes your driver's jab a lot harder to react to. And as DJ, for DJ players themselves, this is where he's best at checking drive rushes. Because unlike other characters who have a disjointed crouching medium punch, DJ doesn't have that forward. It's disjointed below him, but this can often lose to buttons with like high hurt boxes. See? So even if you react properly to certain drive rushes, characters like Ken who do drive rush jab, it'll just straight destroy your crouching medium punch if you're too far, right? And that, unfortunately, is a very thin margin. So what you want to do instead is just try your best to stay relatively close. Look at this. Look at this frame data to the right of my webcam. My button was active before his was, and I still lost, right? Compared to the same situation, just a little bit closer. Right? So you need to get comfortable playing around here. It'll enable this. It'll enable your anti-airs. It's going to enable your counter pokes. And your drive rush checks. Given that you have the reactions, right? Standing medium punch and standing light kick are workable as counter pokes, but they're not great. Just because the reward is so low, and you don't want to risk dying. So, in my personal opinion, it's just better to stay closer in general. And if you are at this range, you don't want to rep something like this. It's much better to just rep something like crouching medium kick, right? So again, if you're a budding DJ out there and you feel like you lose to players like, or characters like Kimberly, who occupy this range often and do drive rush medium punches, and you're getting bodied because you can't check it, crouching medium kick. It's your most consistent at this range, right? And you can try medium kick, but that extra 9th frame can body you sometimes. I really just recommend using crouching medium kick. And I believe that's it. We talked about drive rush jab, his pokes, jump medium kick, his fireballs. Oh, I haven't talked about sway. This is easy. This is straightforward. You only want to use sway on a read. It used to be way better in the previous patches, where you could just sway, light kick, and not care. It recovered faster. It wasn't as easily counterable against DI. But these days, it is very much a read. And the reason being, you have your classics, crouching medium punch or crouching medium kick. Those are the classic DJ like sway spots, as well as a heavy slash. You know? And that's kind of like post pressure, right? But the reason why it's not good is while you can react to DI in some situations, although not off of crouching medium kick, it just dies to drive rush. People are used to playing against DJ these days, so they know the common spots, as well as you're punished very heavily for this not working out for you, much more so in this season compared to last season. So while you can treat it like a cancelable backdash, right? And it is great in that instance to do things like this when your opponent is pressing and trying to check you after a minus frame situation. It's often not the safest bet and something you would rather rely on for getting information first. So what I would recommend here, as opposed to defaulting to sway, is doing delayed buttons or trying to do more tip range pokes. What I mean by that is, rather than if you're in a situation like this, it's a little murky, right? Whose turn is it anyways? But if you do the same thing here, it's much more neutral, right? And if your opponent tries to poke with a long range move, you can just block, or you can alternatively do a delayed button, right? Or try to react to drive rush. And it's something I would recommend a lot of DJ players drill, which is set up your opponent on block reversal to do forward jump, to do drive rush, to do a fireball, to do a crouching medium kick, things like that, and practice doing this, doing nothing, and then reacting accordingly. Whether it's a whiff punish, anti-airing, parrying the fireball, because the new meta for DJ, now that things have progressed and sway is worse, is to do this into nothing or to do button into button, right, on block. You'll see a lot more DJs doing stuff like this, right? And the reason why that is because people are drive rushing more or jumping at him more or DIing at him more, right? And you'll see players like Shen or Zhen do button into button on block compared to sway like they used to, right? So bonus points. So something you do want to try and drill as well as DJ is sway light kick reaction compared to DI reaction compared to heavy kick reaction, right? What I'm saying is block reversal and doing something like heavy punch sway and reacting to whether they whiff a button, reacting to them doing DI, or reacting to them doing forward jump. Because these are often the three counters to sway that you can react to consistently. Although the forward jump is a little harder. Because I'm not going to go too in depth here. The drill is simply going to look something like this. Bump, bump, and let's say something relatively easy. Crouching medium kick, right? And then DI there, right? You get the idea. The reason why this is you need to train yourself as a DJ player not to just default to sway light kick, because it will get you blown up. It will absolutely get you blown up. And especially with forward jumps and DIs. So it might be a bit much, but definitely worth getting this sort of thing down. And getting your conversions and getting your whiff punishes down, because DJ is no longer a character where you can press like that, at least without taking risk. I'm not saying you can't do it, though it'll definitely make your results much less consistent. All right, guys, I'm pretty sure that's it. We'll go over anti-airs another time, probably next, because his anti-airs are quite unique and specific. But hope it helps. I'll see you guys again next time. And I stream on Twitch, so come drop by and say hi. GG's, and I'll see you guys around.